Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one.
The silent room of an old psychiatric institution shows worn walls and small windows, reflecting the difficult conditions of treatment centers in the past, when medical methods were limited and heavily questioned. These places symbolize the neglect and stigmatization of people with mental conditions with strong social impact. The cangue in China in 1873 was a public judicial practice that physically restrained the person being judged and exposed them before the community to reinforce social norms, revealing the strict legal and cultural codes of the time. 10 days after a controversial neurological procedure in 1942 by Dr. Walter Freeman, many patients experienced lasting effects because of the technique used at the time. The method, which sought to treat complex psychiatric conditions, sparked ethical debates and left deep consequences in the field of medicine. Soviet women detained by Germans in Neville in July 1941 represent the strong impact caused by the German advance into the Soviet Union during World War II. These women symbolize civilian and military vulnerability in the face of the harshness of the period and the deep human losses suffered by the Soviet Union. Oklahoma residents migrated in 1935 because of the Dust Bowl, dust storms that destroyed crops, left the land infertile, and caused hardship. The crisis worsened the Depression, leading thousands to seek new opportunities in the western United States and leaving a legacy of migration and change in American history. Elvis Presley, an icon of music and pop culture in the 1970s, was recorded in one of his last appearances at 12:28 in the morning on August 16, 1977, shortly before his passing, which marked the world. His influence revolutionized rock and the entertainment industry, leaving an eternal legacy that continues to redefine popular culture today. John Libera, known for his rare physical condition, lived in the early 20th century with a congenital formation connected to the body. His case drew public attention and revealed medical challenges. His story pushed advances in surgery and genetics, leaving an important scientific legacy. The Hungarian Revolution of 1956 was a popular uprising against the regime imposed by the Soviet Union, beginning in Budapest and spreading outward, symbolizing the fight for freedom and democracy. It was suppressed with great force, but it marked a resistance that influenced the Cold War and inspired movements in Eastern Europe. After 1945, Japan faced difficulties, including a housing crisis in Tokyo caused by the impacts of the period. In 1946, unused buses were adapted as homes, reflecting urban disorder, lack of resources, and a delicate social situation. This showed the challenges of Reconstruction and the social impact of the conflict. The meeting between John Paul II and Mehmet Ali Agca in 1983 showed the Pope's forgiveness after the 1981 attempt. This action promoted reconciliation and peace and influenced interreligious dialogue and diplomacy, inspiring hope in moments of global conflict. Tame Horomona Rehi was the last known representative of his people, recorded in 1925, symbolizing the great cultural and demographic loss of many indigenous communities. This photo marks the fragility of traditions and identities, showing the impact of colonial expansion and the urgency of cultural preservation. Fannie Mills, known as the Ohio Bigfoot Girl, gained attention in 1890 because of her rare medical condition called Milroy disease, which caused unusual enlargement of the legs and feet. Her story drew interest from the medical community and the public, creating debates about congenital conditions in the United States. George Shelley, known for holding Crau Farini, an American performer with a rare condition involving excessive hair growth, stood out in shows of the 1890s, when people with different physical traits drew public attention. These performances reveal the curiosity and social limits of the time. Horace Riddler, known as the Great Omi, was an English performer famous for his zebra-patterned tattooed appearance, standing out for his originality. In the 1940s, he left a mark on traveling shows by using body appearance as art, challenging beauty standards and becoming a legendary figure. During World War II in 1943, medical teams worked in field hospitals on the island of Bougainville, Papua New Guinea, treating service members hurt in Pacific operations. These improvised locations were essential for preserving lives and had a major impact on troop support. Harry Gardner, known as the Human Fly, gained fame in 1922 by climbing New York skyscrapers and performances at the Hotel McAlpin. This feat marked early vertical ventures and sparked fascination with human courage, reflecting urbanization and the challenges of modernity. Women's photography in the 1950s reflected the ideals of the time, showing women with curled hairstyles, cinched waist dresses, and elaborate clothing. It influenced femininity and shaped perceptions of female identity, leaving a legacy in the history of fashion and women's social roles. Chedomir Chupic, a Montenegrin student and member of the resistance, became a symbol of anti-fascist resistance by smiling before his final moments in 1942 during the occupation in Yugoslavia. His gesture of courage marked the fight for freedom in World War II and inspired generations against authoritarian governments. In 1929, record heat melted wax mannequins in a store, causing losses and showing the climate challenges of the time before modern air conditioning systems. This reveals how environmental conditions affect commerce and urban vulnerability in the face of rapid and unpredictable changes. During the Great Depression in Oklahoma City, many workers and their families lived in improvised camps, such as the one on Mays Avenue, reflecting the economic crisis that struck the United States in the 1930s. These communities showed social hardship and had an impact on social assistance policies. An 1873 photo shows Navajo indigenous people at Fort Defiance, Arizona, after the Navajo War from 1864 to 1866. This event revealed the Long Walk, which affected their culture and traditions. The image symbolizes the resistance and transformation that remain in the memory of the Navajo people. Valentina Tereshkova made history by boarding Vostok 6 in June 1963, becoming the first woman in space. The mission symbolized progress in space exploration and women's rights, showing that women could be pioneers in areas long dominated by men, expanding the potential for reaching the cosmos. The landing of Irish Free State forces in Cork in 1922 marked a crucial moment in the Irish Civil War, which set Republicans against the new government. Military vehicles, heavy equipment, and members of the forces symbolized the structure used to consolidate control and define the country's political direction during that unstable period. Workers at the National Shell Filling Factory in Chilwell, Nottinghamshire, in 1917 worked at an important industrial center during World War I. Explosives production was vital to the British effort, highlighting the importance of civilian labor in the conflict. After the war in 1945, Berlin was deeply damaged, but courageous women took part in reconstruction by collecting materials and restoring spaces. Their endurance symbolized German resilience in the face of the marks of the period, the Allied presence, and the challenges of starting over. The public farewell to Tomáš Masaryk, the first president of Czechoslovakia, in September 1937 marked the end of an era. His leadership in building the state after World War I was fundamental, but his departure symbolized the fragility of democratic ideals under the pressures that would lead to World War II. During the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge in the 1930s, a safety net protected 19 workers from high-altitude accidents, marking progress in industrial safety. This technology influenced industry standards and increased worker protection in future projects. Winston Churchill explored Uganda in 1907 as a military figure and journalist during a time of European colonial presence in Africa, experiencing adventures and facing challenges in the jungle. Contact with wildlife, such as the white rhinoceros, symbolizes the imperial expansion of the period and its effects on people and ecosystems for decades. In 1961, children from flooded areas used improvised stilts to cross waterlogged ground on the way to school, showing their adaptation to difficult conditions and the strength of community resilience in regions with poor infrastructure and little government support. The fallen statue at the Ramesseum in Thebes, recorded in 1857, symbolizes the decline of Egyptian civilizations and the decay of their monuments. This discovery, made by 19th century expeditions, revealed hidden ruins and sparked interest in preserving ancient Egypt. The PPSH-41, known as the Hedgehog, was Soviet military equipment used in World War II. With high operational speed, it increased the efficiency of Soviet forces and played an important role in operations against the Germans, providing strategic advantages. The 1974 film The Towering Inferno, directed by John Gillerman, marked the genre of major dramatic productions by portraying an emergency in a skyscraper, reflecting urban concerns and debates about building safety at the time. The film's impact influenced reforms in construction and prevention standards. During the Klondike Gold Rush in 1897, pioneers built temporary shelters on the Daya Trail in Alaska, facing cold, snow, and isolation to reach the gold fields. These camps were essential for the progress of prospectors and influenced the development of the region. The mobile home of a worker in the sugarcane fields near New Iberia, Louisiana, symbolizes the poor conditions of rural workers in the early 20th century. These simple homes reflect the social and economic inequality of the American South, influencing movements for labor rights and land reforms. Actress Catherine Deneuve starred in Belle de Jour, a 1967 film directed by Louis Buñuel and inspired by the novel by Jacques Kessel. The work portrays women's intimate dilemmas, challenging the norms of the time and influencing modern cinema by exploring emotional and social conflicts in the conservative society of the 1960s. Labor movements of the 1940s resisted difficult conditions, long workdays, and low wages while fighting for rights. Collective mobilizations brought the working class together, influenced labor law reforms, shaped social legislation, and strengthened organizations defending workers. During the 1920s, ambulances with the Red Cross in military areas in North America symbolized advances in the organization of medical services, in training and operations. These practices reflected the influence of World War I on the protection and treatment of injured service members throughout the 20th century. The Fat Men's Shop in New York in the 1950s stood out by offering custom fashion for plus-size men, reflecting social changes that valued body diversity and promoted the inclusion of a market that had been neglected, increasing acceptance and self-esteem. In the early 20th century, selling glass eyes was common, showing the popularity of prosthetics handmade by professionals. These prosthetics reflected advances in medicine and manufacturing, allowing social reintegration for people who needed this resource and marking progress in cosmetic and functional prosthetics. A jar with burned figs, about 3,100 years old, was found in Ekron, an ancient city in Israel. The discovery reveals aspects of life in the Levant at the time, helping explain food, storage, and trade in dried fruits during the Late Bronze Age. The woman in this old photo wears a decorated traditional outfit that indicates her marital status and belonging to Mongolian nobility, reflecting a strict social structure. Her clothing reveals the important role of noble women and the preservation of cultural traditions even in remote rural areas. In the 1890s, women wearing corsets play cards in a desert setting surrounded by dunes, showing a lesser explored side of women's lives at the time. These moments of leisure and independence challenged social expectations in a harsh environment, encouraging reflection on women's roles in the 19th century. Lillian Boyer was one of the first female aerial acrobats in the United States in the 1920s, challenging norms by performing on biplanes and doing daring maneuvers in the sky. Her work helped bring women into stunt aviation and popularize the sport, opening the way for future female aviators. The passengers of one of the first transcontinental flights marked aviation history, symbolizing the transition to long-distance routes. This achievement opened new frontiers, connected distant regions, and boosted economic, cultural, and technological development worldwide. Martha Calamity? Jane was a legendary figure of the 19th century Old West, known for her skill with weapons and stories of a challenging life on the frontier. Her path symbolizes survival, female independence, and courage, leaving a cultural and historical legacy. William Neal was a figure of the Old West, recorded in Oracle, Arizona in the late 19th century. In the 1890s, settlement reached its peak with wooden buildings and horse transportation, reflecting the transition of the frontier and the growth of pioneer communities that drove the expansion of the United States. Seabiscuit was an American racehorse of the 1930s who symbolized hope during the Great Depression. Known as the little horse that could, he overcame physical limitations and predictions, winning races that inspired people with a story of perseverance and leaving a cultural and sports legacy. A.J. Smith, a surveyor photographed by William Henry Jackson in 1871 during the Hayden expedition, took part in essential mapping for the exploration of the American West. His surveys defined borders, helped settlement, and influenced the territorial expansion of the United States in the 19th century. The wooden bridge at Dale Creek Crossing, Wyoming, built in 1868, was essential to the expansion of the Transcontinental Railroad. It overcame technical, environmental, and logistical challenges, connecting east and west while boosting the economy, integration, and the movement of people and goods across the country. The opening of the Golden Gate in 1937 marked progress in engineering and transportation in the United States, linking San Francisco to Marin County and boosting the local economy. The ceremony used a silver chain instead of a ribbon, symbolizing strength and modernity, becoming a world cultural icon of innovation and progress. The windows on the World Restaurant at the top of the World Trade Center in New York in the 1980s symbolized modernity, luxury, and a unique view of the city. Its loss in the events of September 11, 2001, deeply marked world memory, representing an episode of major historical impact. The record. The Night Fisherman shows night fishing in Hawaii in 1948, highlighting traditional subsistence practices before tourism grew in the region. The scene reveals a strong connection with the sea, handmade techniques, and the challenge of living along the ocean, preserving Hawaiian values and culture. Workers carrying stones and carts reflect the intense construction in European cities in the 19th century, especially in Paris during the remodeling led by Georges Haussmann. The process transformed the city, creating avenues, modernizing infrastructure, and changing the landscape and populations. An outdoor hockey game in Sweden in 1959 shows the popularity of the sport even in harsh winter weather. The game was stopped early because of difficult conditions, reinforcing the tradition of outdoor hockey in Swedish sports culture, enjoyed by generations. Urban surfing began in New York in 1965, with young people's growing interest in skateboarding. The practice influenced culture, lifestyle, and city landscapes, spreading around the world and becoming a symbol of freedom and creativity in the modern city. The Love and Movement in Los Angeles in 1967 symbolized the hippie counterculture, marked by the search for peace, freedom of expression, and new social values, along with opposition to the Vietnam War. It influenced youth culture and later peace movements, becoming a symbol of social transformation. In the cultural setting of 1968, a coffeehouse in New York's West Village was a meeting place for artists and intellectuals discussing social and political changes. It symbolized a crucial space for activism and cultural revolution, reflecting the transformations of the counterculture and its impact on American society. In 1970, a defiant young woman tried to provoke a royal guard in Sweden during tensions between military formality and the youth cultural movement of the 1970s. This action symbolized deep social changes, questioning traditions and formalities, and foreshadowing modern Swedish cultural transformations. Elton John's glasses collection in the 1970s reflected his extravagant style and became a symbol of pop culture. With large lenses, colorful designs, and striking clothes, he influenced fashion and music, establishing his image as an icon of individual expression in history. The 1978 cover of Time magazine highlighted Prince Charles, heir to the British throne, as a central figure of a monarchy in transition. Known for his strict preparation, Charles symbolized continuity and the challenges of the modern British Empire, influencing global perceptions of leadership and royal tradition. Norma Ann Sykes, photographed in 1955, symbolizes the height of swimwear fashion, with striped patterns and pieces that became popular after World War II. This transformation reflected social changes and new styles, influencing trends in later decades and marking a time of innovation in fashion. Marilyn Monroe, a 1950s icon, was photographed at Grand Central Station on New Year's Eve in 1955 as her career reached its peak, and she symbolized Hollywood glamour. This image reflects post-war cultural change, a time of social transformation, fashion, and mass consumption. Marilyn Monroe, an icon of cinema and pop culture in the 1950s and 1960s, symbolized the transformation of beauty and behavior standards in the post-war era. Her dancing figure represents the height of her career and the influence she had in challenging social norms, leaving a lasting legacy in world entertainment. Raquel Welch became a cultural icon in the 1960s and 1970s, symbolizing new standards of female beauty, glamour, and striking presence, while also representing women's prominence in cinema and media. Her image helped expand female empowerment, influencing fashion, behavior, and social perceptions at the time. Audrey Hepburn, a cinema icon of the 1950s, appears in this photo during the filming of Love in the Afternoon in 1957. The film strengthened her unique charm and elegance, influencing aesthetic and cultural standards, while popularizing romantic cinema and reinforcing Hollywood's prestige in the post-war period. Jane Birkin, in Munich in 1967, represented the cultural energy of the 1960s, a period of social, artistic, and musical transformation in Europe, marked by new forms of expression and the value placed on freedom. Her style influenced generations, reflecting an era of protest and cultural renewal. Ava Gardner was one of the most iconic actresses in American cinema in the 1940s and 1950s. Her talent and beauty made her a symbol of glamour, marking a golden age in Hollywood. She influenced world cinema, leaving a legacy in the way women were portrayed on screen and challenging the standards of the time. Jane Mansfield and Mickey Hargitay married on January 13, 1958, combining Hollywood fame with influence in pop culture. The ceremony, marked by 1950s glamour, highlighted Mansfield as a style icon, influencing fashion, behavior, and beauty trends to this day. This 1940 photo shows Al Pacino as a baby, revealing his childhood before he became a star of world cinema. His career influenced culture, theater, and entertainment, leaving a powerful legacy in the history of film and dramatic arts. During the filming of The Shining in 1980, Jack Nicholson relaxed on set, surrounded by the striking scenery and intense atmosphere created by Stanley Kubrick, which marked psychological suspense in cinema. The film innovated in storytelling and setting, influencing filmmakers and establishing Nicholson as an icon of the genre. Elizabeth Montgomery became famous as an actress in the series Bewitched, aired from 1964 to 1972, which innovated by mixing supernatural elements with comedy. The production influenced pop culture, highlighted the role of women in media and society, and became a symbol of cultural transformation. Susan Sarandon is an engaged actress who uses her fame to support social causes and public debates. Since the late 20th century, she has remained involved with civil rights, women's rights, and humanitarian campaigns. Her stance made her a symbol of social participation, influencing debates and inspiring new generations. Brigitte Bardot, an icon of French cinema and a style symbol of the 1960s and 1970s, stood out with films such as Les Novices in 1970, strengthening her worldwide fame. Her work reflected the transition of a European cinema toward more modern themes, influencing feminism and the artistic freedom of the time. Brigitte Bardot, a cinema icon and animal rights activist, appears in the 1970s at her home with two English setters, symbolizing her passion for dogs. After leaving the screen, she dedicated herself to the animal cause, influencing policies and worldwide awareness, marking an important social transformation. The 1953 film Avenue of Hope, directed by Dino Risi, portrays the setting of post-war Italy in black and white, reflecting the social and economic challenges of the time. Risi, a pioneer of Italian neorealism, captured the hope and tensions of Reconstruction, influencing European cinema and its social storytelling. The film The Women, directed by George Cukor in 1939, portrays the lives of women in American high society, exploring gossip, rivalries, female friendships, and conflicts in an elegant urban setting. It is a milestone because of its female cast, reflecting social issues, gender questions, and the values of the time in detail. In 1944, Cass Daly and Jimmy Durante broadcast a radio program live from the Hollywood Canteen, a place created to entertain American soldiers during World War II. This initiative played a crucial role in raising troop morale, connecting the entertainment industry with the war effort. Shelley Duvall, an American actress, appeared in Houston in 1970, a period of cultural transformation in the United States. Her presence reflected the era, influencing cinema and fashion, while the country went through deep social changes, marking the pop culture of that time. Eminem, also known as Marshall Mathers, appears in this photo beside his brother Nate around 1987 before finding success in American rap. The image shows a humble setting in Detroit, the city that influenced his art, and the modest roots that shaped his path and cultural impact. Dorothy Stratton, a model and actress of the 1970s, symbolized the rise and the difficult side of pop culture. International fame after appearing on the cover of a widely circulated magazine, success in film and advertising, but her life ended too soon, leaving a mark on society and revealing the vulnerabilities of young celebrities facing the pressures of the entertainment world. The 1983 film The Outsiders portrays young people from different social classes in the 1960s in the United States, highlighting tensions between teenagers from different realities. It became a milestone by representing youth challenges and the search for identity, influencing pop culture and the perception of youth at the time. In the 1950s, railroads went through essential modernization for transporting people and cargo, boosting the economy. Train stations symbolized the growth of cities and the role of transportation in Reconstruction, social development, and improvements in community life. The Nobley-Knees competition in England in 1953 reflected a growing popular culture after the war, bringing a festive and relaxed atmosphere. It highlighted humor, simplicity, and leisure as elements of social unity and national reconstruction. Playground equipment from the early 20th century reflected the growth of the entertainment industry and urbanization, marking the creation of public leisure spaces accessible to families. Made of wood and metal, they symbolize the value placed on free time and outdoor social life. Atlantic City Beach in 1908 was a popular destination, reflecting the growth of urban leisure in the 20th century. Its beaches filled with swimmers, families, and tourists drew crowds, boosting tourism, strengthening the economy, and establishing the city as an entertainment center. In the 1950s, decorating the Christmas tree symbolized the value of family life, unity, and joy during year-end holidays in American homes. This custom reflected post-war economic growth, allowing people to invest in decorations and reinforcing the cultural values of the time. A photograph dated February 13, 1905, reveals domestic life of that period, showing customs, clothing, and everyday scenes that were shifting toward modernity. It highlights the importance of photography as social and cultural testimony, preserving valuable memories of that time. A father and his daughter take a ride in a farthing cart in England in 1900, showing family life, daily routine, and the joy of simple trips at the time. This scene reveals how accessible vehicles were beginning to transform leisure, mobility, and society, anticipating social and technological changes. Goat-drawn carriage rides in Central Park, New York in 1904 reflect a time when leisure looked for unique forms of outdoor entertainment. These carriages marked an important transition between rural habits and urban modernization in the history of parks, showing the wide range of entertainment options of the time. In the early 20th century, physical rehabilitation devices appeared, such as machines that gently twisted the hips to improve flexibility. This technology reflects advances in medicine and therapy, seeking to improve the quality of life of people with limitations during a period when physical therapy was developing. Students in an art class in 1957 listened to music, reflecting a time when American schools integrated culture to encourage creativity and expression. With a record player and artwork on the walls, it shows the role of art in post-war education, influencing generations in the value of culture and learning. Graduation ceremonies in the late 19th century were solemn moments, with students in formal clothing and strict protocol, symbolizing the value placed on education and the transition to a world that saw academic knowledge as the path to social and professional progress. High school football players in Chicago trained in 1902, when the sport was beginning to gain popularity in schools across the United States and attract more young people. This period helped establish amateur school football, influencing sports culture and shaping modern American football. At the Casino de Paris in December 1968, performers and guests experienced the height of party glamour, reflecting the cultural energy of the 1960s, when fashion influenced styles and behavior, leaving a strong legacy in pop culture and the social trends of the time. Kabuki Onoe Kikugoro, the seventh, pictured with his wife Sumiko Fuji in 1973, is essential to the preservation of kabuki theater, a traditional Japanese art with intense dramatizations, makeup, and elaborate costumes. His work keeps this culture alive, influencing generations and strengthening national identity. Martin and John Manhoff were a couple who lived through the harsh winter of the 20th century, reflecting the climate and lifestyle of the time. The simple outdoor scene shows the daily life of families during a period of social and economic change, highlighting the impact of the seasons on clothing and family surroundings. A young bride leaves her damaged home in London on the morning of November 4th, 1940, during the turbulent World War II. This moment symbolizes the resilience of British civilians who, even after the intense attacks on the city, continued their lives with hope and strengthened national unity. Alma Reville, wife and collaborator of filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock, appears in the kitchen with a wax figure representing her husband stored in the refrigerator, a gesture that reflects the peculiar humor of the 1970s. This episode reveals the close relationship between them and the director's lasting impact on world cinema. The house on Pemberton Farm in Rush County, Kansas, represents the rural way of life of pioneers in the 1880s, when agricultural expansion was growing in the West. Simple structures like this were essential for settlement, transforming the territory and shaping the rural identity of the United States.